Bad dad jokes have become a bit of an expectation of how dads relate to the world. For those who may not heard this term before, bad does not refer to the one speaking, but rather to the quality of the puns themselves. They tend to be rather groan-worthy. So, before you start to hear the sermon this morning, I thought I might share a couple of Christmas-themed bad dad jokes. Why does Santa come down the chimney? Because it suits him. What did Adam say to his wife on Christmas? It's Christmas, Eve! Why are Christmas trees so bad at sewing? Because they are always dropping their needles. What do sheep always say to each other on Christmas? Merry Christmas to you! Knock, knock. Who's there? Noah. Noah who? Know a good Christmas joke? How did Darth Vader know what Luke got him for Christmas? He felt his presence. Knock, knock. Who's there? Merry who? Merry Christmas. What is a duck's favorite Christmas carol? In the beak, midwinter. Knock, knock. Who's there? Pizza. Pizza who? Pizza on earth. Goodwill toward men.
So you might get the idea of what dad jokes are, what they look like, and what they sound like. These puns and silly sayings have weaved their way into how people, not just dads, share in conversation with others. Why do we associate these silly puns and jokes with dads? With fatherhood? What is it about fatherhood or being a dad relates to these kinds of jokes? Well, I offer there are as many ways to have bad dad jokes as there are the many ways in which to be a dad. Or, to put it another way, there are so many ways anyone can care for another, that there are so many ways in which one human being can nurture or care or mentor or teach another human being. As Christians, we have an example at the Christmas story of one who was called by God to care for another human being. That person is Joseph, the father of Jesus. Joseph. As we hold joyful anticipation in our Advent season, we can so easily overlook this man, this Joseph. For really, what did he do that had any lasting impact on Jesus' story? After all, only 16 verses in the whole of the Bible call Joseph by name. Joseph is sort of a background character with Mary as the lead parent. Joseph really does not arrive at all in any of the gospel stories. So, how important can Joseph really be? Well, honestly, we don't really know that much about Joseph. We're not even sure if he was the 17-year-old who Mary's probably 12, 13, 14-year-old self, or if Joseph was a much older man who was a widower who married a young girl. We don't know what Joseph thought of Jesus' ministry or if he was alive at Jesus' death. We don't know if Joseph was present at events and ministries such as the wedding in Cana. We just don't know. But here is what tradition tells us about Joseph and his role. The first thing, Joseph was a carpenter. He wasn't a priest or a king. Joseph was a regular old human being, just like so many of us. And the other thing, and this one is the biggie, when Joseph first heard Mary was pregnant, he, like any other, probably would have assumed Mary had not been faithful to him. Joseph had assumed that Mary had broken the legal promise set forth in a first-century Jewish engagement. In response to this perceived betrayal, Joseph was going to break off their engagement quietly. This meant he would not subject Mary to the rights given to him in Deuteronomy 22, verses 20 and 21. If, however, the charge is true and no proof of the woman's virginity is found, she shall be brought to the door of her father's house, and the men of the town shall stone her to death. You must purge the evil from among you. Mary's choice to carry God's Son would have been seen by others as a sin, as an embarrassment, as a stain which reflected the whole of the community and would have been harshly dealt with. Joseph could have very easily had Mary publicly punished, publicly shamed, but instead he decided to give her grace. He decided to let her go quietly so folks would assume he had left her, that he had betrayed her, that he instead would carry the shame instead of Mary. Then Joseph, like Mary, received a message, a request from God, a call. Joseph heard it, Joseph responded, and Joseph raised Jesus. But what if Joseph had not listened to God's call to him? What if Joseph had not followed God's call? What if Joseph had been a different kind of person? What would it have meant for Jesus? And what would that mean for us? As Methodist minister Reverend Adam Hamilton writes, God's plan for redemption of the world partly depended on one man's willingness to raise a child, not his own. Not only to raise a child who was not his own, but to be the mentor, the role model, the teacher who raised Jesus, who loved Jesus. This, in turn, meant Jesus would know how to be a mentor, a role model, and a teacher who taught God's love. And I lift up these additional ponderings, these additional thoughts. What if, through his unspoken actions and his spoken words, it was Joseph who taught Jesus that women have a voice, that women have a choice in ministry, especially when he took Mary in after assuming she had betrayed him and then learning she had not. Joseph taught Jesus that God speaks to women too. What if Joseph's willingness to take backstage to Mary showed faith that there was something going on greater than Joseph himself. What if Joseph's willingness to raise what is traditionally believed to not be his biological child would in turn teach Jesus to care for others, no matter what role they played in his life? And that family is whoever we make it out to be. What if Joseph's call is the silent strength that weaves throughout all four Gospels? What if Joseph was present? What if Joseph's presence in Jesus' ministry, miracles, death, and resurrection was Joseph's grace-filled spirit guiding Jesus, who then guides us? All because Joseph, the perfect person to help raise Jesus, answered and responded to God's call. He responded and he answered with grace, unconditional love, perhaps joy, hope, and with a peace found in his heart that there is something greater than each of us as individuals.